Hey, good morning, designers. I know it's probably not morning while you're watching this, but it's morning right now, so I figured I'd just be polite. I was sitting this morning having breakfast, and I thought to myself, boy, everything seems to be going well. I've been seeing lots of good designs, and people have been sharing good plans with me. And I realized I had not talked about the finer points of topography with you. Now, we had talked about, we looked at it in our research document. Those of you guys who are advanced students who are watching this too, and you probably know a lot about this, it'll just be a little refresher for you. But I wanted to show you a few things that Adobe Illustrator can do that you might not be aware of or you just haven't experimented much with. Um, One thing you want to consider in topography is that repetition and pattern and visual unity all still apply. All those things we've always talked about in the elements and principles of design should apply to anything you type too. You know, type should not be an afterthought. Your type can be every bit as eye-catching and every bit as important as the logo itself. Might even be part of the logo. So I mean, it really does play an important role. Um, so that's what we want to kind of look at. A couple things I want to talk about with this are where to find your topography menu to start with. So right now I've got Adobe Illustrator open here, and you could very well, when you click on the type tool, you know, your bar is going to open up at the top up here, and you're going to be able to have menu options to pull on and stuff like that. I mean, there's options to, you know, you can warp things and stuff like that. There's a lot of the things you'll see that's very familiar to Microsoft Word. If you clicked on character right here, it would even give you this little menu here, which is very nice, and that's a lot of what we're going to be using. But I like to be able to dock mine, and I like to be able to have options in it too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to Window, and I'm going to come down here to Type, and then you have all kinds of options over here. If you click on character, the very top one, it's actually going to give you two options at once. Well, three really, but we only really concentrate on the two. Is character and paragraph. Okay, and those two right there, I think, are probably the most important. They're the ones that I reach for all the time. And you know just as well as anybody else that desk space comes at a premium, particularly on your laptops. So I like to be able to dock things whenever possible. So I'm just going to bring this over here until one of my little bars lights up there, and there we go. And now it won't go anywhere while I'm working. I can also come down here if I want to make this guy a little bigger here and fit on screen. There we go. So I'm liking that right now. So the now that I've got that docked, I can start to consider some of the parts of topography that I really need to focus on. So I'm going to go to this document over here and fit that on screen. And these guys right here are a very important part of topography. They're mainly the three important points. We have kerning, tracking, and leading. Now here's the scoop on these guys. Um, I picked Century Gothic to do this with because I love Century Gothic. I really like the nice round forms in they're like the perfect circles that are in a majority of the letters. The problem with Century Gothic is it has some of the worst kerning out there. And kerning is the space between one character and another. You can tell just by looking at the word kerning here itself that it is not equal. And part of the reason is because of the way the letters are shaped. But I've got a K here with a big open space and an E with a round space here that leaves a good chunk of negative space next to it. So it automatically looks like this space is weird. Like this looks like way more space than between the R and the N. And the N and the I and the N over here look like they have equal space, but that looks different from the G. So that can be kind of a pain. Now I could try and adjust what's called the tracking, and what tracking is adjusting all of the letters at once. So if you adjust the tracking, and I'm going to come over here, this guy right here, this is VA with the big highlighted box around it. It basically looks like what I've got on my screen right now, is how to adjust the tracking. I can use this guy, and I can either bring these letters tighter together, or I can bring them further apart, but that doesn't solve the problem. You know, it's great if I need to make something fit into space and I need that to be just a bit tighter, but it's not really helping solve those individual problems. So what I would do to adjust the kerning, the space in between the characters, is I would put my cursor between those two characters. I'm not going to highlight anything. I'm just going to put my cursor between the two characters. I'm going to come over here to this guy, the V/A right there. that shows adjusting the kerning. And if you forget, and I forget from time to time too, just mouse over the little icon and it'll say kerning. This one says tracking. This one says leading. We'll talk about that next. So if I adjust the track or the kerning here, you can see all the rest of the letters are staying the same, but now I'm drawing in that space between the E and the K. Okay, that looks a little more normal to me. I'm seeing, you know, and I realize it's a tighter space than what's right here, but because of this giant negative space gap here, it actually looks a little more correct. Same thing, well, I don't like this giant space between the N and the I and back and forth, so I'm going to bring that in just a hair. I can do the same thing on this side of the I. And that's why, you know, in some cases that adjusting the kerning itself works better than adjusting the tracking overall, because if you have a weirdo font like Century Gothic, every letter has a different instance of that. That looks way better to me already. I'm sure there's some spots where I could tweak it, but that's way better. So I showed you the tracking, which was adjusting the whole thing all at once. And now that I've done this I've adjusted the kerning, I can retrack it too. So now that I've got all those spaces pretty equal, I could spread them back out. Now that may cause trouble down the road, but you can see it kind of still, it looks way more even than it did before. So now let's talk about leading. Leading is the space in between your sentences in a paragraph. So we're talking this space right here. I'm a big proponent of letters needing room to breathe. You know, either between each other, a little bit of space, or between paragraphs, or between lettering and your design. Like if you've got a hard line somewhere and then you've got writing below it, you don't want that line to be right up on the lettering. They need like a little gap. But it should be, you should see, when we talked about repetition, you should see repeating elements. So when I look between kerning and tracking and leading, I notice that the leading's not the same. This is a much tighter space right here, and this is a much bigger space. So what I would want to do in this instance is I would want to select this section right here, and I'm going to adjust the leading down a little bit. So when I pull the leading down, it's going to draw that up. Now, notice it's drawing way up into that guy. These are two separate paragraphs right here. I cannot actually take this guy and adjust this. I put them on two separate layers, and I did that on purpose just to show you. See, right now I cannot adjust all those guys. The cool thing is now I can actually take these guys here and physically move them down. And if I need to do that, I'm waiting for my little smart guides. There's my pink smart guide on the side there to tell me when it's lined up, when everything's intersecting. I like having those. Those are very helpful to me. So now I look at that. Now I can. So I adjusted the leading between these two paragraphs manually just by dragging. Between these two that were connected, they are in the same text box. I actually highlight and adjust the leading over here. Okay. So those are the big three. So let's go back a little bit. What if you want to adjust just one letter? You can actually do that. And the cool thing is, this is the only instance of this where it's still editable. I'm going to move these guys, and I'm just going to, hang on one second, I'm going to turn them off just for a minute. My layers are out of order here, so I just having trouble finding them. Bye-bye. All right, let's take this fella here. We'll move him down. Okay, what if I want to adjust just one letter? And you might say, well, isn't that kerning? Yeah, technically, but check this out. I'm going to go to my type tool. I'm going to highlight the R here. And then I'm going to hold down over here. And by the way, if you haven't played around over here yet, this is a lot of fun. If you want to make your text look like it's on a wave, we can talk about how to do that in a minute. That's type on a path tool. There's vertical type. I don't always advise that guy because it's hard to read type going downwards, but you know, on a marquee or something, it's not horrible. But the touch type tool is a lot of fun. The cool thing about the touch type tool is that you can select one of your letters to adjust. And let's say I just want to adjust the R here. And maybe for the sake of things, I want to pull it up here. And maybe I want to rotate it just a little bit, like it's going, whoo-wee. Maybe it's showing, maybe this is an advertisement for good kerning or bad kerning. But the neat thing about this is, unlike every other texting where we have to change it and make it not editable anymore, this actually lets you still edit the word. So I can go back to my type tool here and I can highlight this and I can still edit it. I don't know what it'll do. But I mean, it's still an editable letter. oddly enough. So I can highlight it, I can make changes to it. If I want to make it smaller, I can still do that, which is pretty much unheard of with your other tools. Okay, so that's a thing you can do. Now let's go back to our typography page here. So let's say you've done all that stuff. You've fixed your kerning, you've fixed your leading. You're very happy with the way it looks. I didn't do anything to typography here, but I'm digging it. It's okay. It's Myriad Pro. It's playing. All the characters are playing nice with each other. So now I want to do some weird stuff. Oh, I want to arc it. You know, in Microsoft Word, I could arc it. I could do all kinds of stuff like that. Well, you can still do that here. It's just not as easy. There's an extra step. So what you want to do when you do this, you'd say, oh, great, I've got it highlighted. I'm going to go up to my effects. I know where warp is. Like, oh, wait, how none of these are highlighted. They're right there. That's the stuff I want to do. How come I can't do it? You have to, right now it's editable text. Those guys don't play nice with editable text. What you have to do in this situation is you have to outline the text itself. So if you go and you click on this guy right here, and right now the Illustrator knows this is editable text, I'm going to right click and go to Create Outlines. And now that's going to change. I will not be able to edit my text anymore. It's going to take it from being type to being just a regular path layer. So, but that's the cool thing about it is now I can do this, and now it outlines it. I can't go back in and change that anymore. But the cool thing is now I can select the entire thing, or I could come up to this guy right here and I could select just one letter. So I'm going to select these guys here. Let's just get all these guys here. We get this, and now we can go up to Effect. We can go to Warp. We can arc that text. We can do whatever we want with it. Cool thing. There's all you've played with this probably a little bit before, but there's all kinds of weird ways that you can change this type. Let's see if I change the bend a little bit. My preview's not working for some reason. You're there. Why aren't you? Thank you. I too have memory issues. My this is a Mac, but it's getting a little old. So down the road, Mr. D is about to buy a new toy. Ooh, that's real weird. Don't like that. Ooh, that's kind of cool. All right, so let's say I like that and I hit OK. Now you notice it looks great, but my old paths are still there. And if I move this around, it's just going to move that with it. Okay, don't forget when you're in this stage of the game here, you need to go up to Expand Appearance, okay? Because any effect you do, raster or Illustrator based, you're going to have to make those paths conform to it. So once I hit an object, Expand Appearance, it's going to put them right where they need to be. Okay, which is cool because now I can do other fun stuff too. For example, I can just, let's say I want to manipulate part of this H right here. I don't know why I would, but you know, stranger things. Let's say I want to bring this H all the way down. All I have to do is grab this guy here and pull way down here. And keep that as straight as I could. And let's just zoom in a little bit on that. I kind of like the point actually, but I would like to manipulate that a little further. Oops. Technical difficulties. Oh, I do like that though. All right, let's see. We're going to grab this guy. We'll grab the handle and bend that and see what it does. Oh, that could be fun. All right, let's go back and let's fit that on screen and see. Woo! Hey, could you tell I was downloading fonts earlier? The joys of live video. Well, live right now. Okay, there. Boy, that is kind of cool. All right, so that little hiccup right there in that little gap, but I could fix that later. But you can see that way you can actually edit these things and make them your own. You know, you started with Myriad Pro, but now you're kind of designing these letters to go the way you want them to. So that's another neat thing you can do. Other than that, I think that's about all I really wanted to show you. If you have any questions or if there's something that I didn't mention, you say, well, what about this, Mr. D? Please hit me up. I will even make a second video if there's something big that I forgot and I'll let you know about. Okay? But thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Play with typography. It's so much fun. And like that's why there's some logos that are completely typography based to begin with. Okay? So have a little fun with that. I hope that guides your decision-making process and learning a little bit. Okay? I miss you guys. I'll see you later.